Thank you, thank you. So let one more time, round of applause for Noah and Sean and the Harlem Real Estate NorCal Mastermind. Thank you for hosting tonight and for all you're doing to help strengthen our real estate investor community here locally. So who has been in Sacramento the last 5 years? Raise your hand. 5 years? Okay, how about 10 years? 10 years? 15 years? 20 years? 30 years? 40 years? Oh, okay, you all. So, well, I've been here. I am so grateful for being in Sacramento for 20 years now. And Sacramento has been such an important community. I started working in the state capitol in 2005 for Senator Don Parada. Then in 2007, went to go work for the lieutenant governor. Then worked for a congressman. I actually interesting story. In addition to being a senior U.S. congressional staffer, in 2013, I was the only Asian campaign manager for a U.S. congressman that cycle. Oh, 2015. But in 2015, I loved my job, but I had to leave because my mom had cancer. And as much as I love working in government, I needed to make more money so that I can help them, my parents with their retirement. My mom is a nurse, they're immigrants, they really needed help. And as the eldest son, I stepped up. So I left working from government and working for 10 years there, and I went to go work for real estate developers. And as of today, I've now worked with over a dozen local real estate developers. And in that time, in less than 10 years, I went from owning nothing to now owning 15 properties here in Sacramento, mostly in Davis, over 50 rental units right now. And currently, I'm also actively managing properties too. So I'm not only owning, but actively managing about $17 million of real estate value. And I try to think about if my story would have been possible if I was like in the Bay Area. And I'm like, probably not. Or if I was in LA, probably not, or Orange County. I really do think that me being here in Sacramento this last 10 years completely transformed my life. And if I can do it, I'm very confident all of you can do it. And so, with that, I'm going to just start with the punchline of tonight's talk about creative financing, which is success. My success in real estate had nothing to do with good properties. And I realize this because you can have a great property, great location, but if you have the wrong strategy, then the wrong deal acquisition strategy, the wrong financing strategy, the wrong operation strategy, you will still lose money, right? And let me repeat, if you have the wrong strategy, especially now in this environment where the market is tough, we're talking about a very significant market correction nationwide, including in California, you will lose money in real estate. Who is doing real estate to lose money? If that was the case, I would still be investing more Tesla stock, right? We're here to protect our money, conserve our money. And so for me, the takeaway was simple. If you want to achieve that downside protection and achieve outsized risk adjusted return, then you need strong strategies. And today we're going to be talking about creative financing and the main goal of what you want to be able to achieve right now in 2025. All of my sophisticated business partners are saying you just need to achieve positive leverage. What is super simple? Positive leverage means any deal that you are underwriting, that the deal cap rate needs to be higher than the interest rate. So interest rates right now 6.38%. It means your deal cap rate, the net operating income divided by the purchase price, needs to be higher than that. If it is not higher than that, then you are negative leverage. And many of the operators, the multifamily owners that are in distress right now is because they had positive cash flow, but they were negative leverage. But they could justify to their investors, oh, we're positive cash flow. But when the economy turns down and their tenants stop paying rent, boom, they're in foreclosure. And so it is so important that if you're not at positive leverage, at least neutral leverage. Your deal cap rate needs to be at least 6.38% right now. And if it's commercial, 7%, really. And as though it sounds simple, it's actually not simple to achieve it. It's actually kind of complicated. And why? Here are the three market realities right now, as of October 1st, 2025. Reality number one. Despite the Federal Reserve cutting rates 25 basis points 2 weeks ago, the reality is interest rates for real estate is not going down, right? It's not going to go down. I mean, like, it's as low as it's been since last year. But if you remember last year in September, they did over 75 basis point cut. But by January, interest rates were back up to 7%. And the main reason is no matter what the Fed Reserve does, and their economists are predicting another 50 basis point cut. Mortgage interest rates do not track the Fed rate. They track the 10-year Treasury bond yield, 30-year Treasury bond yield. And what we're seeing for Treasury bond yields is that it is stubbornly high at 4.25%, and it's likely going to continue with the inflation we are seeing, right? And inflation right now, as of today, 3.1%. So the Fed is concerned. And number one, so recently the trade wars, tariffs, a lot of economists are saying the producers were able to absorb it this year, but next year it's going to be passed on to consumers. And inflation is going to freak out, bond investors. And number two is going to be existentially our government. We're now at a $37 trillion debt. That's a historic debt level in the United States. So that's reality number one. Mortgage interest rate probably not going down that significantly this next year. Number two is if you are trying to get something, even right now, using conventional financing, your deal will not pencil. I have looked at it a ton of times. And what do I mean conventional financing? It means a 6.38 interest rate. You're doing 10% down, 20% down. Your deal, not going to pencil. It's going to be negative cash flow, likely negative leverage as well. And so just something to keep in mind. And then for commercial, you have to put 30% down or 35% down, and a 7% interest rate, not going to pencil. So point number three, reality number three, if you want a deal to pencil and get positive cash flow in 2025 and 2026, your down payment has to be 50% down payment. And if you are not doing at least 40% to 50% down payment, it means day one, you will be negative cash flow. And I'm going to talk about, because I got a fourplex that was sent to me before off market, $600,000. It's a fourplex in Hardin. Actually, Hardin Realty sent it to me. So it's pretty interesting. $600,000 fourplex in Hardin. In Hardin Arcade. I would have to put down $300,000 for me to get a 3% cash on cash. And $300,000 for a 3.5 at most 4% cash on cash in Hardin Arcade. But I don't know if it's worth $300,000. Okay, so what is the solution? Solution is creative financing. And on the tables, I have written 17 creative financing strategies that my firm has done. I have personally done 15 of these creative financing strategies so that you can make deals pencils. So of the 17 creative financing strategies, it's really 7 frameworks. Creative financing where you are getting seller engagement, where it's seller backed. Number 2 is going to be private debt. Number 3 is going to be private equity. Number 4 is going to be leveraging leasing, lease strategy. Number 5 is lazy equity. Number 6 is technical equity placement. And number 7 is business to business. Let's go really fast with all of these so we can get to Q&A. So number 1 for seller-backed strategies, the most common is seller financing. This means that the owner of the property, the seller, owns it outright, free and clear, does not have a mortgage, and instead of getting a upfront down payment, they would rather get monthly payments amortized. Why is that beneficial for the seller? Is because then their capital gains tax will also be amortized throughout that payment schedule. And so it works really well. So if you're an old property owner, you're 65 years old, and you want to retire, and you rather have dividend income instead of like, that down payment, that cash from selling it, maybe seller finance is a great strategy. And so anytime you're buying property from someone older, you should make the ask, like, would you consider seller financing? And if your mortgage broker or your realtor doesn't know how to make that ask, you need to find new people, right? Almost like every realtor I talk to from Hardin and or from this group will be like, I know how to make that ask. Okay, number two, subject to deals, right? Subject to means that the owner doesn't own the property outright. However, they are willing to give you their loan, right? And this only works if their mortgage rate is low. Their interest rate, let's say it's 3%. They bought it during the pandemic. And instead of them selling to you, they are willing to let you assume their loan. But the problem with this is if they do that, it can trigger the dual sale clause. So you need to have an attorney. Actually, no. Okay, you should have an attorney, but you need to develop a trust structure so that they have some ownership in the property, even though it's not actually meeting economical ownership, so that it doesn't trigger the due on sale calls. And ultimately, the other downside is that it will mess up their debt to income because if they ever to get another loan, lenders will see because the actual mortgage is still under their name. Number three, assumable mortgages, and that's the same thing, but just for VA loans and FHA loans, that you can assume the same risks associated. Wraparound mortgages, and this is very interesting. This is again where the seller is willing to help you with essentially the down payment, and instead of them giving you the property or you getting a lender, you have much more flexibility with a lower down payment and save on the interest rate. Then next, this could be private debt. And next is first is seller carry back second mortgage. And that is when the seller, again, helps with the down payment. And instead of you doing a full loan, maybe you don't qualify for 400,000. You only qualify for 300,000. But the seller is willing to pay 100,000. Then you have a second mortgage. So you have a lower down payment, but you have two mortgages, a primary and a secondary. It can work if you need the lower down payment and also if you can negotiate a good interest rate on the second mortgage. Hard money, bridge loans, and that really is for people who are doing value add plays. Because hard money in Sacramento is 10% to 15%. It can be up to 18%, but 10 to 15% is what I have seen on average. And so you want to carry that for six months to 24 months max, and then you want to refinance out of that. So that really is a fix and flip or a value add play. Next, the area that I really want to focus on today is private equity. And private equity is really how I'm seeing deals pencil. And that is the idea of trifesting, where instead of me putting all 300,000 down to buy a fourplex in Arden Arcade, I split the 300,000 between three people. I put 100,000, Joe puts 100,000, and Dick puts 100,000. Now we're putting down 50% for a fourplex, and for 100,000, getting a 4% cash on cash in Sacramento. That actually sounds interesting. $300,000 for 4% cash on cash. That actually doesn't make sense, right? That's a bad use of capital. But 100,000 each, and not only do we spread the down payment, we also spread the risk on professional responsibility, operational risk, legal responsibility, our name on the loan. So now one single person is on the hook for loan recourse. Because right now, banks are not offering non-recourse loans. It's going to be on recourse, meaning that if you default, they will come after your personal assets, your collateral. And so there are three different private equity plays that you can do. So first is what I call co-GP, or pari passu joint venture. And it's simple concept of we split the down payment equally, but we also split our job description equally. And so the reality of any rental property, from 10 years of doing this, there's 12 different tasks that need to be done, from who's going to do the taxes, who's going to be doing the property management, who's doing the operations, who's sourcing the deal, who's financing the deal, who's doing the underwriting for the value add, who's doing the project management for the value add. And so you kind of need to just decide who's doing what, and they are going to earn. And ideally, you split that equally too. The next private equity play is the limited partner syndication. That means either you're raising money from people who don't want any of that operational risk, or you're that person that would rather work with someone who's willing to take all of that operational risk. But the bottom line is you still split the down payment, right? So let's just say in this scenario for the fourplex, Dick wants to be the general partner, and us two, we don't want to do that. We just want to be a limited partner. We're still splitting the down payment, right? For this fourplex, we need 50%, so 100,000 each. However, instead of us getting 33, because Dig is doing all of the professional responsibility, we'll just say, 20, 20, and 60, right? So that math probably didn't add up. But the idea is, and usually in Sacramento, the general partner role sweat equity is anywhere from 10% to 20%, just for doing the 12 tasks that I mentioned. And lastly is land contribution. And this is a very interesting one where the seller needs to sell, but they don't want to sell, right? But you want to do some kind of value add project, or you want to do new construction. This is a great way where they could contribute the land value as equity into a partnership, and then just that land value, but then you're raising additional funds, or you're bringing additional funds to build new projects or do the value add, and their pro rata share is going to be the land value. And that's a good way for folks, sellers who are distressed or what have you, but they just don't want to sell it. And so, simple case, when I was doing foreclosure sales, we had this lady that was about to face foreclosure, and she would not sell the property. And we said, hey, why don't you contribute your equity land value, and we will have to redevelop this entire property, but when we sell it, you will get your pro rata share. And so that is land contribution strategy. So next is going to be lease strategy, and I believe this is a really good one. I am doing this right now. Actually, I have done all of the ones thus far, or my firm has. The lease strategy, I am personally doing it, which is lease options. And lease option is the ability where there's a property for sale, but instead of you paying for the full property price, you agree to that strike point, but then you rent the land until that you are ready to then buy it at the strike price that you have already negotiated. So this is a great option if it is a property that needed value add that you want to stabilize. So then if you buy a fourplex, and because the owner, they don't need the full cash, they just want, dividend payment that they didn't want to be on the risk for. Great. Then you are renting the property and you are stabilizing the property, and at a certain point, you can buy it at that strike price that you negotiated. The master lease is the same concept, but it's for commercial and much larger units or parking lots. And same idea, we bought a parking lot at a certain price point, or we're leasing a parking lot where it's paid parking. It's not really generating that much money. But what it's giving us time to do is putting together our entitlement package so that when we're ready to develop, we can buy it at that strike price that we already negotiated. And right now, real estate values are low. So if you can find someone who is willing to just lease it to you but still agree to the low price points right now, that could be very interesting. So next is going to be lazy equity. And so many of you have heard of this concept of the HELOC, right? And the HELOC is interesting, or the line of credit is interesting because, again, you are only paying the additional interest rate on what you take out, right? So you have a $300,000 loan, and you have $600,000 in equity, but you only take out $50,000 of that HELOC. You're only paying that additional interest rate for that $50,000, and so then you have a blended rate. That is so powerful, especially if you can find a deal that is going to pencil and actually generate good returns. And the same thing for cash out refinance, where you're able to buy a property where you can increase the net operating income. Because again, commercial real estate, unlike residential real estate, is appraised not on comps, but its income producing capability. So if you increase the rents, you just increase the equity. And then that equity, you can take it out as a loan against yourself where you are not paying taxes. And especially if your interest rate is already low and you can find a deal that's going to produce 9% preferred return, that may make a lot of sense. And most recently, one of my investors did a self-directed IRA. I thought it was complicated, not very complicated. So I have right now over 200,000 of IRA, like Roth IRA, SEP IRA, traditional IRA, 401k. A lot of us have that. And a lot of it is lazy, right? Really not working as hard as it could. And so all you need to do is hire an IRA custodian, self-directed IRA custodian. They kind of take over, and whatever real estate deals that you do, they can help place that into various syndications, partnerships, and or your own deals as well. So next is going to be technical equity placement. That is receiving money through 1031 exchanges. I mean, anyone who's doing a 1031 exchange, you know it. You have 180 days to close the deal, 45 days to get a deal in place. So they're going to be desperate. So that's a good if you're operating deal and you can take in 1031 exchange money, that could be very interesting. Crowdfunding as well, which is new. So this wasn't a thing until this last decade. And however, you do need to register with the U.S. Security Exchange. There's something called a Form D, and it's actually pretty straightforward, but you should still have an attorney then where now you can raise really small amounts, right? $1,000 checks for your real estate deals. Then lastly is business to business. These are the two that I haven't done personally, but I am familiar with from my business partners. So one is buying notes directly from the bank. And there are especially smaller banks who want certain properties off their books. And so you can become the lender, take over the debt note, and if the homeowner stops making payment, then you can foreclose on them and take over the property that way. So that is note sales. And lastly is trades. And usually trades happen with land for conservation purposes, or if you're a real estate developer and the city asks for mitigation of certain lands and permanent conservation, then you want to trade land with other, folks who own land. There's a variety of other reasons why you want to trade land. I'm not necessarily an expert, but right there, that is 17 different strategies of how you can do creative financing. But let me end with this. 3 ideas. Number 1 idea is you want to stack all of these strategies together, right? Just for creative financing. So what do I mean? It means do the seller finance, right? Try to get something or subject to at 2.9% interest rate. Then get the private debt at 10% for 6 months of value add renovation. Then do private equity, where again, you get 3 other people helping put the down payment down. Then leverage equity, your own equity. For my 100,000, I'm going to use my lazy self-directed IRA so that I can juice that return, and ultimately be in a situation where you can also work with sophisticated investors by using some of the technical equity placement. So that is number 1. Is all of the strategies I mentioned are not mutually exclusive. You can stack them together. Number 2 is stacking. Creative financing is not enough. If you, again, have a great creative financing strategy, but all of your other strategies are not good, you're still going to lose money. And so creative strategy is important, but deal acquisition strategy, right? Being able to get a deal off market that's distressed, right? That is financially distressed, building is distressed, legally distressed. Your value add strategy is very important. Your operational strategy, the asset manager, the property manager, your tax strategy, are you going to do straight line depreciation, bonus depreciation, and your exit strategy. And stacking all of those strategies is really how you get these outsized returns. And then ultimately, you're stacking all of this with your larger portfolio strategy. right? So this one property or this one idea, where does it play? What role does it play in my larger portfolio when I talk about diversification, right? My asset class, assets and various markets and investment strategies. Where does it play on the allocation of properties by my level of engagement, the risk profile, the return profile, and what role does it play when I'm trying to create a balance between properties that are providing downside protection versus asymmetric return? So, recap: stack your creative financing strategies, and then you can have, so right here. So come grab it, and then stack those strategies, creative financing strategy, with your deal acquisition strategy, operation strategy, value add strategy, um, exit strategy, and beyond. And lastly, stack it with your portfolio strategy. So with that, that concludes my presentation. And I want to make one final point. This coming Friday, we are going to be doing a free Zoom workshop at 3 o'clock. And we'd love to invite you all. We're going to be covering not only portfolio strategy, we're going to be covering investment thesis, deal analysis, and market analysis right now in 2025 and how we're preparing for 2026. And with that, a huge thank you, Noah, Sean. Thank you all.
Thank you, Trent. Oh, wow. I learned a lot of crazy content. I learned a lot of good stuff. Thank you so much, Andrew. You're awesome, dude. Thanks for, can we get a round of applause for Andrew? You're awesome. Really appreciate you coming by. I always learn a lot whenever we have Andrew speak. He has a wealth of knowledge. So before we speak, three announcements. One is the flyers. If you guys did not get one, please come and get one later. Number two is if you haven't signed up, where's the sign up?
It's over on the back table there, the sign in there.
This sign, so there's a way for us to contact you. And number three is that this presentation is being recorded, and you can, if you want to review or share it with your friends, go to YouTube and look for Harden Realty. The long form will be posted there. We also have the short forms on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. So we have collected a lot of YouTubes. You guys can review and learn from other presenters as well.
And with that, the music is about to start, but we probably have a couple minutes. If there are any super quick questions for Andrew on the subject of creative finance.
So for me, all of my experience has been in California, and specifically, all my properties are in Sacramento. But the creative financing strategies are, global, right? So yes. Yeah, and I will tell you one other thing, especially if you are doing value add plays, California law has changed. So, for example, in August 2025, the governor signed SB 1123. What that means is any property that is an acre and a half, you can build 10 ADUs. Repeat, if you are in an acre and a half, instead of just building one ADU, you are legally, by a ministerial right, can build 10 ADUs. This law just passed. A lot of people don't know. I have 9 other laws that I will cover in the workshop this Friday.
Thank you. Nice. What about agriculture? Can you still build an ADU?
So, yes, agriculture land, you can build ADUs. However, this law specifically is for residential properties that are an acre and a half. Instead of upzoning up to just 4, you can now, in all of California, build 10. SB 1123.
Sorry if you already spoke on that, but is that Sac County or all of the state?
All of California.
So no matter where it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I mean, there's so many more laws like this in California that are unique to try to help increase density, support affordable housing. So, an important one here in Sacramento, there's a special code where for however many units that you deed restrict, you are able to get a proportional amount of tax abatement for property taxes.
Anybody else? So food for thought before we end and go. The thing is, there are two kinds of people, rich and the poor, right? The rich people, they have large libraries. Poor people have large TVs. Why? Because the rich focus on education and the poor focus on entertainment. Right? The rich invest first and then spend what's left. The poor spend first and invest on what's left. So you want to think about good habits. Follow the rich, copy them, and then you'll become one of them.
Okay, our real estate mastermind. Wow.
If you guys
Wow. We're just gonna hang out for the rest of the night, guys. Thank you all so much for coming. Please grab a drink, grab a snack from the venue. Grab a flyer, sign up, read the QR code, one shot.